Sounds good. You look and
Sounds
sound
good.
good.
Okay.
Yep, I wouldn't change anything. Don't get in your car like a lot of people do, okay? All right. All right, we're gonna hit record. Are you ready?
Is this just an audio or a video too?
Oh, this will be audio and video.
Okay, good.
So look pretty, okay?
And I'll have the ability to access it and send it to friends and whatever.
Absolutely.
All right.
All righty.
Or
So
distribute it to the world. I have a 900 member energy listserv would probably be interested.
beautiful.
It's
Okay.
always the same. My message hasn't changed in 50 years, really, but it gets more refined.
Well, it better not. I mean, technically, if you're talking about energy, the laws of energy shouldn't change. So I'm
Won't
with you on that.
change. Won't change.
Yep. So, all righty.
Yeah.
We're going to hit record in three, two. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. You know, I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, put it down on a piece of paper, and share it with the many, ultimately changing their legacy and destiny, but impacting the world in the process. And I try to interview people who have very, very interesting backgrounds, who have something to teach you, whether it's about business or yourself or maybe the laws of the universe. And that's what we're going to get into. Before I begin, I just want to let you know if you're out there and you're looking to write a book, check out Dream Starters Publishing. We can help you out with wherever you're at in the process. And if you want to put your book on autopilot, check out bookmarketingcrm.com. But the book that we're talking about today has to do with energy. I was just saying before I hit the record button that money is energy. That's how I view it. And where you put your focus is where you put your energy, is where you get your results. And so it's all intertwined. And that's why it's going to be interesting to talk to this individual who wrote the book, Energy Return on Investment. The author is with us, Charles Hall. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
You're welcome. Hi. Hello to anybody out there.
So, yeah, it's an honor. You're about to go camping or something. You gave us a little bit
Yeah,
of
yeah.
some time. And so, number one, why did you write this book?
Because I've been working on it my whole life since my PhD work in 1967 to 70.
Beautiful. Okay. And you said you agreed with me that money is energy. Can you explain that?
No, money is not energy because you put a well, it is. You put a match to it and you might be able to heat half a cup of tea. But money is the means by which we society have, well, it helps exchange. It's a unit of exchange. But what it really is saying, let me give you an example. It's a lien, LIEN, a lien on energy. It's a promissory note on energy. Now, let me give you an example. If I'm in New York or Ashland, Oregon, where I am now, and I buy a bagel, and let's say in New York you get a really fine bagel, and how does it how does that bagel happen? How does it get there? And so, well, it starts down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and there, natural gas wells take natural gas out of the earth, and then they run it through what's called the Haber process, discovered in 1908 or 9 by Fritz Haber, and then industrialized by a guy named Bosch. And it has a whole enormous history uh, because you can make gunpowder with the Haber process and make fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer, which is the most important fertilizer. Nitrogen is the air is full of it. It's 70% of the air is nitrogen, but it has these triple chemical bonds, meaning the two nitrogens are held together very tight and they're very hard to pull apart. And this guy, Fritz Haber, took in the lab, he took a tube and a special tube and he compressed it while he heated it with with natural gas and air inside, and he split apart with adding all that energy, pulled apart the bonds of the nitrogen, and because there was natural gas in there, they grabbed on the hydrogen and made ammonia. And ammonia is the basis of fertilizer. And it was rare. On Earth, it was rare before 1908. There was a little bit made by lightning bolts, and there was a little bit made by specialized organisms because life, when it began, had to get nitrogen because that's what you make proteins out of. And so that's what you need to make wheat grow is nitrogen fertilizer and a little bit of other fertilizers too. Okay, so you do this from natural, but you have to have the natural gas and you have to have a lot of energy to run a Haber process. So that happens down in southern Louisiana, where traditionally there's been a lot of gas. And then the fertilizer is put on a barge and barged up the Mississippi River to Nebraska using energy. And so then energy is used to deliver that fertilizer in a truck to the fields and then used to fuel the tractor, which spreads the fertilizer on the land, and then runs the tractor to put the seeds in. And then some cultivation, perhaps a little bit more diesel used there. All this mostly is diesel. And then run the tractor one more time to harvest it. And then you take the wheat into a central facility and you clean it up using energy and you grind it up using more energy, electricity maybe, put it in bags and put it on a freight train. And then you send it using more diesel along the railroad to New York City or Ashland, Oregon, or wherever. And then the baker will use some more energy to mix the batter, heat the oven, cook the bagel, and boil some water and put the bagel and finish it off in the boiling pot of water. There's energy used at every one of those steps. No energy and no bagel. No energy, no economy. And so on average, your dollar bill, I should have a dollar bill here, I don't, but your dollar bill should say, pay to the bearer 5 megajoules plus or minus 5 megajoules of energy. And that's about half a coffee cups full of energy, of oil.
Yeah.
So that's 20 times 5, that's 100 megajoules right there, or 5 coffee cups of about getting close to a gallon of oil is necessary to support the economic activity represented by that $20 bill. How's that?
Amazing. Well, I love how you broke that down because it does show the significance of it. But I always
Yeah,
talk.
and people think energy is, in the old days that money was backed by gold, but in back in 1500s, the Spanish doubled the amount of gold in the old world, meaning Europe, but they halved its value. It caused inflation because what they did was that the work that was done, and that's a critical issue, the work that is done in the economy, which was by the sun, by crops, by farmers, by foresters, by fishermen, whatever, by housewives, by seamstresses, whatever, the work had not changed, but they doubled the amount of gold, so they halved its value.
Wow.
Also happened with silver.
Yeah, I knew that there was a silver battle right in the 1800s, late 1800s, especially out near Utah, right?
Well, I'm not going to speak to that. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, money is not backed by precious minerals. Money is in lean on energy, a promissory note for energy.
Wow.
If I own this dollar, then society will give me 5 megajoules plus or minus of goods and services.
Yeah, I like how you put that. And when I think about just energy in general, I always like to see how it equates to my actions in business. And I think there are certain laws that we can apply to business, such as every action has a reaction. Once again, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. And if I can understand that, an object in motion stays in motion. So momentum plays a huge
Well,
favor.
let's do the first one.
Yeah.
The laws of thermodynamics. Here they are. Number one, the quantity of energy is not changed over time since the Big Bang. I mean, we don't know exactly, but the quantity of energy has not changed. But that's the first law of thermodynamics. But the second law is the one that gets us. The second law is every time there's a transformation, some of the quality is lost. It goes from useful, high quality energy, sound, light, heat, mechanical motion, to low grade heat at
Wow.
every transformation. And so you're always losing some of your quality. So you can't recycle energy because every transformation, you're losing some of the quality. And that's the second law of thermodynamics. First law, the quantity is not changed. But the second is the quality is changed and generally decreases over time, although it may be concentrated as higher quality energy, like in you or me. That's what we do. But put your hand on your arm. There's heat coming out there. You're turning some of the useful energy in the chemical bonds of your food into unuseful energy that's at about just a little bit above the temperature of the environment that you're in. So
Okay.
you're
So the
a
quality
degrader of
decreases.
energy.
So the quality decreases. I get that. And
That's
now,
the second law of thermodynamics.
okay.
And to our knowledge, they are never broken, with a little exception for Einstein's matter into energy. But that's also it's all conserved.
Beautiful. And so the way I'm also able to equate these laws into business is force equals mass times acceleration, right? So if you are not a
Well,
big
every time
company,
you have an acceleration, you have to use energy to do that, and you're taking some high quality energy and degrading it into lower quality energy. So every time you generate some product in the business, in whatever business it is, you have to do so by degrading energy. And what it means to us practically is we're using up our quality fossil fuels, our oil and gas especially. So every time the businessman might think it's great, I'm going to increase my business. But if you're increasing your business, you're depleting our resources. It's inevitable.
hmm.
And
Now,
so, you know what? How long is the oil going to last? Well, we don't know exactly, but we think that the maximum production, called peak oil, is probably more or less now. We thought it was going to take place about 15 years ago, but we were quite frankly fooled as many people were, by the fracking revolution. It's a damn good thing because our society runs on oil, and fracking bought us another decade and a half. But we're probably, we're not reaching the end of it, but we're reaching the peak probably of energy of oil production in the world, and the United States probably took place in about 2018. A little hard to tell for sure because COVID messed things up and so forth. But it looks like something like that's happening. And we have a paper about that. I'll send you the paper, and your readers can ask you for it if you want.
yeah,
It's by Jean Larrère, and myself, and Roger Bentley. And it's mostly people are being fooled by the official statistics on how much oil and gas are left. They're not to be trusted.
I
And
still
we go through exactly why.
got it. And so what America has, in North America, do you believe that they have enough oil that still they could be self-reliant for many generations?
Hell no,
No.
absolutely not.
So we've heard
How
that
old are
before.
you? I'm 80. I'm 80. I don't know. I might make it. How old are you?
39 years old.
Yeah, well, you're gonna be in deep shit, man. The
Why?
transition is going to be very painful if
Why?
there is a transition,
Can you give us
because
explain that?
everything we do is based on oil and gas. and it's not going to last much longer. It might last till you're as old as me, but it will be declining during that time period. It already is declining.
So what will we
And there's
see?
more people to use it,
And what will we
more people
see?
fighting over it.
You think the price of oil and gas is going to just skyrocket?
Well, I'm not in the business of predicting prices, but I would guess so, yeah.
What do you envision with everything that's happening? Do you believe that EV is the future for sure? Electric vehicles and all of that nonsense of, whether you think it's going to save the world and save the climate, and give us
Well,
your
we might as
thoughts.
well do it. Screw the climate, not for climate, but we got to have, unless you want to have a collapse of society and the death of, I don't know, 7 of the world's 8 billion people. Now we can do that. That's an option. If we do nothing, that'll probably happen. We might as well see what we can do with renewables. I don't think they can replace oil, but they can ease the transition, shall we say. So we might as well see what we can do with that. What the hell? I got solar panels on my roof, but my minor claim to fame is energy return on investment. And, we're arguing over exactly what the energy return on investment is for various renewables and solar panels and wind turbines, as well as gas and oil. And, historically, we had very high energy return on investments for oil, but those days are gone, unless you live in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so they're okay. Now, the Industrial Revolution, right? We're talking about 1840s, 1860s, somewhere
Yeah.
in there. That's when we started to tap into the power of oil. Am I right?
Well, 1870 to 1920 was a transition. Winston Churchill made a big deal when he said the British Navy in 1914, I think he said this is going to change from coal to oil. But, Britain didn't have any oil at that time. That was a really kind of ballsy thing to do. So they had to get the oil from the Middle East.
Well,
And but they did.
you're probably very
And
aware
then
of
they
what
gave it to stupid admirals who made very poor decisions in the Battle of Jutland, but that's a whole nother story.
you're probably aware of what Rockefeller did whenever it comes to
Oh,
Rudolph
yeah, yeah,
Diesel.
yeah. The whales were had a party for him, because we were lighting with whale oil at the time, and incidentally, whale oil was depleted just like regular oil. My friend Ugo Bardi's written papers on that, and so the whale's oil would be gone by now, except along came Rockefeller, and what he did with Standard Oil is he made a very standardized quality of kerosene, and that made a tremendous difference in lighting in America. But he had this very dangerous co-product that he had no use for called gasoline, and he didn't know what to do with that till Henry Ford came along.
That's right. Yeah. How about the battle between Rockefeller and Rudolph Diesel? Are you familiar with that at all?
Um, Not as a battle. I mean, old Rudolph he was a pretty clever guy, and do you know why all reciprocating engines, piston engines that are big are diesel?
No, I don't know the reason why.
There's no gasoline engine more than about 2 inches across the cylinders. It's because it's spark ignited, and the spark starts the explosion at a point, and it's got to spread, and it takes time to spread across the piston head. Where diesel is compressed, and it all ignites at once.
Oh,
So you can make. My cousin was a railroad engineer, and not driving the train, but fixing the engines, and he could crawl right down in the cylinders of the diesel engines that he worked on. But you can make them huge, but you can't do that with the gasoline engine. That's just a little aside.
well, Rudolph Diesel, I believe, wanted to make it so farmers could really grow their own fuel.
Yeah, oh, that's true. Rudolph did want his original diesel engine did work on soy or some kind of plant oil. Yeah,
Vegetable
yeah, yeah,
oil.
that's
Yeah.
right. I forgot about that.
Yep. And so That was his vision, and therefore individuals can be self-reliant. Well, are you familiar with what happened to Rudolf Diesel in 1913?
No.
He was thrown overboard and he died
Ship?
on a ship. Yep.
Why
And
was he
many
thrown overboard?
1913, no, nobody really knows why. People think he just fell
Not by
off.
Rockefeller.
And I believe it has to do with Rockefeller in the battle. So at that time, it was very much like the battle between the gold standard and the silver standard. There was a battle going on who was going to win, Diesel or Rockefeller. And when he passed away, it opened up the door that gasoline was going to be the way of the future. So many conspiracy theories out there say that
Well, we use
Rockefeller had
both
some
depending on
people.
what you want to do. You want a comfortable car, you use gasoline. You want to move something serious, a big truck or a tractor, then you use diesel.
Well, but imagine if Rudolph Diesel would have won and his engine that people could grow their own vegetable oil. Do you know what that would do to his Standard Oil? Also, every gas station ever. If individuals can just grow their own fuel, it would change the world. Anyways, that's fascinating. But the reason why I bring that up is because if you look back in history, individuals have realized that maybe there's another way. And the way that usually wins is where there's the most money tied to it. You look back, the electric vehicle was actually before the combustible engine. The first car ever in 1840 was electrical, right? And it took how many
Oh,
years to become now talked about, right? Almost 200 years. Pretty wild. So the way I say it is, the way I see it is that money is always tied to energy. And so when you talk about return on investment, politicians, the corporations, they're not going to want to go completely in a direction where they're cut out of it and go completely solar panels and all wind turbines, I guess. I think that they're
well,
always
I'm
going to
not.
be
I'm a
compensated.
scientist. I'm not in the business of what I would call, pardon me, no insult intended, but conspiracy theories. Who knows?
You know,
I do admit. Excuse me, Mariner. Could you hand me my big thick book, yellow book? Yeah, yeah. Um. So, this was the book I thought we were doing.
which one's that?
Let's see if I. It it
It doesn't work.
is,
It's still blurry. I can still pull it up. I have energy return on investment. Yeah, we could talk about energy
and
and
this is a different book.
energy and the wealth of
Energy and the
nations.
Wealth of Nations. An
Oh, okay.
introduction to both. I would think your readers would be more interested in this.
Yeah, we can. What's that about? Tell us about that one because I just love. I saw your first book here on Amazon. I'm like, man,
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fascinating.
Well, they're connected. Just how do I? Just a minute. Um, I don't know how to make the damn thing focus on this.
Yeah,
Well, you can get it off the web, right, and put it
yeah.
up
Don't worry
here.
about. It. We can.
All right. Okay, good.
I
And
just
look,
like
it's a
talking to you
much
about
thicker book.
science.
It's a much thicker book.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. An introduction to biophysical economics.
That's correct. So, look, I'm a natural scientist, trained as a systems ecologist, how to think about whole systems of nature, and by this incredible guy named Howard Odum. And so I came up with the concept of energy return on investment for migrating fish for my PhD. How much energy does a fish use? That's the fish swimming here. Hard for, how much does a fish use in swimming from here to there? And how much does it gain from the migration? I was not interested in economics or the society. I was interested in fish when I was, in my 20s and late 20s at the University of North
You
Carolina
didn't
getting
tell
my
women
PhD.
that, did you, Charles? Did you say, "Hey, I'm really interested"? Did you tell women what you were up to at that time? Is that how you met your wife?
No, well, in fact, my wife, I didn't get married till I was 45 because I wanted to be an ecologist. And
Oh,
it
very
was
nice.
very, very hard because I had to learn all this chemistry and physics and all these natural sciences. And then I went and I made these ecological models. I wrote my first book on modeling, and which was fine. Now I have a way of making models that's based on data from nature, but there's all these theoretical models in ecology that I increasingly thought were bullshit. And so when I was a young professor, actually at an Ivy League university for 13 years, I'm a young professor there, and I'm just thinking there's just so much stupid models in ecology. And and because we were a famous place, all these famous ecologists would come through and give their fancy models, and most people would just be interested in the math, but I'd be interested in whether the math represented the biological phenomenon. And I'd always ask questions, and people get mad at me, although they were good questions. And and then I decided I would take 7 years off and study economics, because I'd never had an economics course, because I thought so much of the modeling in ecology was BS. And I said, well, economists, they get Nobel prizes, and they must be much smarter and stuff. And I dug into economics and had a couple of students that helped me learn economics, and I found it was worse. That economics is more based on bullshit than even ecology.
I can agree with you on that. Nobody knows anything. It's amazing.
Well, I think we know some things, but I think your readers would really like this book just because I've written it with an economic historian, and and there's a lot of good economics from the past, and I mean way past 150 years ago. There's a lot of good economics, but what happened was what was called the neoliberal or neoclassical revolution in about 1880. Menges and Jevrons and somebody else, and so they solved the diamonds versus water paradox and came in with a concept that everything in economics is decided in the marketplace. But that's bullshit, because how do you get the stuff that you sell in the marketplace?
Well, that's why I
And
talk about
how does
capitalism.
that relate to the natural world? And so you can't study that using social sciences. You have to study that using the natural sciences. And that's what our book's about.
Well, I think it's chapter 2 of this book, you talk about energy, wealth, and the American dream. In my opinion, this is why capitalism works so well. To me, capitalism is wealth through servitude.
Well, capital works because you give people incentives for exploiting nature.
No, you provide value to a marketplace that is willing to give up a resource in order to acquire that solution. Am I right?
I don't think that way. You give people lots of incentives, big salaries, wine, woman, and song, to exploit nature and to take the products of nature and through manufacturing and whatever else, turn it into things that you can get money for. And money gives you access to more energy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so then you can have that fancy watch and the fancy sports car, and the woman will come to you, and we're all biological creatures and wanting, to fulfill our evolutionary destiny and reproduce as much as possible and whatever. I mean, I don't think men are thinking about reproduction. But anyway, and then it gives you access to power. And there's been long evolutionary history of natural selection for people wanting power, and on and on and on and on. But how do you do it? You do it by exploiting nature. You don't do it by markets alone, and
Well,
barely by markets.
maybe that is a definition I've never heard before. It makes sense
Well, you
in
better
your.
take a look and maybe show us a few pictures from the video the PowerPoint I showed you. I just put my basic concepts into cartoons.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at it. We'll probably use some of them. But this is why capitalism works, though, right? If we're on this planet, there are
Well, if
resources
you want to
around.
plunder the planet, sure. If you want to destroy all the fisheries and destroy the atmosphere and deplete the soils, yeah, it works for a while.
Well, it's still this planet has resources available for us to utilize. Am I right? So is it
Well, for a
just
while, I mean, but it's ever okay. Look, I used to live in Montana. In Butte, Montana, they used to mine 40% copper ore. That means, you have a kilogram of soil of the ore, and it's 400 grams of that is pure copper. So that was 40%. And then in 1920 for the United States, it was about 4%. And now it's about 0.4%. So we've used up all the best stuff. There's still copper to be had, but you have to grind up 10 times more of the earth to get a kilogram of copper. And if you're talking about making a whole new, brave new world that runs on electrical cars and electricity in general from wind turbines or whatever, then all of that has to come out of ever leaner ore, which requires more and more energy to grind it up to get
yes?
it.
So that's what I was talking about. I believe it's a falsehood to say that electric is the future when I think it's actually worse in the long run. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't know. We don't. I haven't seen. I get evaluations every day in my email. Everybody is connected to me in the energy world, more or less, and I get evaluations every day, and I haven't seen one that I would put my money on. There's some guys in Spain, Capellan Perez and his colleagues that do as well as anybody, but and it's scary when you read their projections.
That's why.
So it's going to be tough. And then I have other colleagues, Simon Michaud in Finland, a French name, but he's in Finland, and he says no way there's enough materials to make a renewable world. It's just not enough metals. Now that argued, and I have people coming at me all the time from both sides. So I don't know, but I'm going to tell you, you're not going to resolve the issue with markets and with capitalism. That's just stupid.
I say, what's your solution then? Because I believe think like an entrepreneur is
Who
my
said I had a
solution.
solution? Why do I have to have a solution? I'm a scientist. I analyze what is. I'm not a seer. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a magic. That's what you need, a magic wand. I do not have a magic wand.
Well, here's the thing. You sound like my ex-girlfriend, always bringing problems to the table, never bringing solutions. Just so you know, you're
Why
sounding a
should I
lot.
bring solutions? Okay, I'll tell you my solution. Are you ready?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
Zero.
Okay, I have zero too. I figured all this out in 1967 when I was 22 years old. Or 24, I guess.
Okay.
So I figured all this out and I didn't have children. So nobody will talk about population. I'll talk about population. We need fewer people and we need less economic activity. Vote for me for president.
You're not. Well, I think the Democrats would definitely vote for you when it comes to less population, though, for sure. Less economic activity. To me, people need jobs.
Yeah, but you don't need to have energy intensive jobs. I agree. I want people to have jobs. I came from farming in Massachusetts background. I know about hard work. I mean, I didn't do it myself, but I was a college professor. uh,
So
well, that was hard. And let me tell you, that was hard.
you sound like you're part of the World Economic Forum, by the way. We need a less population. That's crazy to the average listener out there, right? So why do you say that? Is it just
Why
simply
should it
because
be okay, if we've only got so much oil and we're reaching the peak, I mean, and we're really lucky we had fracking came along and I don't have any other frackings in my closet, that if there's another fracking, I don't know about it, then I'm wrong, but I don't know about it. And so fracking has saved our ass. Think of where we'd be in the United States without fracking relative to Russia with all this Ukrainian mess. Russia would have us by the cojones. And we're lucky we have enough oil to produce all of the oil we use. 60% almost comes from fracking. We'd be really up the creek without a paddle relative to global situation were it not for fracking. Now, I'm an ecologist, and I'm saying this. Everybody thinks how horrible oil is. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. It's good stuff, but we want to use it carefully. We want to use it to go to a transition. The best thing, I suppose, we can make out of oil is condoms.
Man, what happened to you when you were 24 years old? You just didn't want
I
kids?
use condoms.
Oh, that's hilarious. Why? All right, so I'm with you. There's all this mess when it comes to with Russia and all that. The president that we have that's supposedly in power, they say, is not drilling. Why? He's relying on other countries to give us the oil. What is going on here?
No, no, no. Well, he's a little bit shifty on this, and thankfully, and he's got some new stuff going up in Alaska. That and he's not interfering too much with the oil business.
I talked to a few people in the oil
But
business. They're not allowed to
I
drill in
agree
certain
with him. I
states.
think we should try to get off of fossil fuels.
And so you
That's a
remove
good
the EV.
idea.
Do you like Elon
Huh?
Musk and what he's doing? Do you like Elon Musk and what he's doing?
I don't pay any attention to him. He's irrelevant.
He's changing the world. He changed the world. He made EVs cool.
I think so. I don't.
Oh, so wait, what's the transportation look like? Do you believe in 15-minute cities? Is that where you're going with all this?
I'm not going anywhere like that. I don't make any projections like that. I don't pay any attention to what most people do.
So they're talking about 15-minute cities. Klaus Schwab from the
What is
W.
a 15-minute city? I have no idea what that is.
Oh, so you're not familiar with this? They're doing it in China, where basically it's everything in one building or everything within 15 minutes of everything you need. So no cars, no transportation that necessary. If there is
That's
transportation,
bullshit. Where do they get all the food?
yeah, so it's all brought in. It's all brought in, and therefore the individual doesn't have to leave. It's almost like a little prison.
California City? Is this the one in California?
15-minute city in China. I don't know, but they
Well,
build all
they're
kinds
building
of
them everywhere.
huge cities using an enormous amount of energy and skyscrapers and all this stuff. And they have no people in them, too. I mean, you got to put that in the equation as well. Sure, 50, not using cars, that's great. I use my bicycle. I like my bicycle. That's fine. But and I live in a town where everything is within, I guess, 10 minutes of driving in my Prius. Or, I've got a forerunner too for going fishing because I like to go fishing. So anyway,
Are we talking about Charles is breaking his own rules? Is that what you're saying here then? Is that the truth?
I'm not breaking any rules. I never said that I was the only thing environmentally virtuous I did. I think most things that people do that are quote unquote green are not when you look carefully at them. And that's what I'm good at. Let me just give you one example. They are building these machines to take carbon out of the air.
Yeah.
And my friend June Sequeira wrote a great paper in which she looked at 200 case histories of taking CO2 out of the air using machines. And every single one of them, when you did a systems analysis, and that's my thing, a systems analysis, the whole system to get the CO2 out of the air and try to sequester it or whatever they did with it, not a single one of them was a net remover of CO2.
I agree.
You're just using energy. Guess what happens when you use energy? You produce CO2.
Okay.
While you're building that bagel, and spending $1, you're also releasing half a kilogram of CO2.
We just produce CO2 by us breathing here. So if you're against CO2, my question to you is, all right, do you know how much of the atmosphere is made up of carbon? Do you know? I'm sure you do know, right?
Yeah, 0.04%, or I might be off by a decimal point.
0.03 is what I've heard.
420 parts per million.
Yeah. So my question to you is, what's the accurate number that it should be? Do you know?
What do you mean should?
I mean, if that's a problem and the solution
What happens
is
if you were a dinosaur? You know how much CO2 was in the air when the dinosaurs were doing just fine? Thank you.
no, how much?
3 or 4 times that.
Yeah. So carbon to me is not the big issue. Do you agree?
No, I mean, I don't know because it sure seems like the weather is doing weird things, but mostly we have more and more damage because people are living where they shouldn't be along the coast and stuff. And the coast is the sea levels are rising, and look, will the climate change? Absolutely. Why? The climate has always changed.
Always change.
Is it
Thank you.
always
Yes.
changed? But it's changing a little faster now. That's a little worrisome. And what does this mean? Well, the planet doesn't give a shit. The life doesn't care. It'll evolve. It'll adapt. It did in the
Yes.
past. It'll do
Hey,
it again. But
there were ice ages.
But Homo sapiens may not. The different species come and go, including perhaps ours. That might be, if you want to, now I don't worry about that because if I sometimes think, do I want to save civilization if I had the power, which I did not? And I would like to save Mahler and Puccini and a little bit more of the treasures of civilization. But as to mankind in general, they're nasty things. And well, most species are aggressive, so are we.
Well, you just kind of proved my point there. I've heard many people say that we need less population. Well, the planet will always survive. Maybe people won't.
Lower population.
Doesn't
lower
that just
population, not less population. Less people, lower population.
Yeah. So
sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So when I hear that, I'm like,
fewer people. My wife has just corrected me.
Right. She's listening. I like it. Anyways, I agree that a
$1
carbon
million book. Are you going to make my book into $1 million book?
After they listen to you, they like your personality. I bet people will buy this book. Maybe ultimately enough people.
You look on it. Springer keeps the sales records. 2.5 million people have apparently bought the book, the economics book.
Wow.
Now I think it's partly because they had a free giveaway for a while, and half the people in China bought it. Or anyway,
that's fascinating.
It's a good book. It's a
guys,
damn good book.
It's Energy and the Wealth of Nations and an introduction to biophysical economics. But
it should be the basic economics textbook used in every college, even in the United States, instead of the fairy tales that they're teaching them. They're teaching our children fairy tales.
They agree.
Are not looking at economics as an ecosystem, as a material system, energy-driven system that supplies goods and services at various costs to the environment and lots of energy along the way.
I agree. I think school is corrupting the youth with bad information. So my last question for you before you got to go.
I mean, I don't know if it is. Excuse me. I don't know if it is.
I think it is. I think it is.
Well, they're not teaching you proper English, and maybe not me. And are they teaching them how to do their mathematics? And you got to teach them conceptual calculus, not how to manipulate the numbers. But can you tell me the relation between the speedometer and the odometer in a car in terms of calculus?
No.
Yeah, well, the odometer integrates the speedometer, and the speedometer is the first derivative of the odometer. You think about that while you're driving. And that's all you need to know about calculus. You need to know how to apply it.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about that.
How to apply it. I took years of calculus. Nobody ever told me that. Simple relation.
My idea is, why is the school creating wealth, helping us create wealth? That's my opinion. But anyways.
Oh, school, you saying why aren't they? Of course they're teaching you how to do it.
No, they're not.
I went to Colgate. I went to a fancy undergraduate school. It's fancy now. I don't know if it was fancy when I went there because all I did was fish, but I learned a lot. But I think fundamentally what you learned at Colgate was, the right wines and right connections and, the right things to say. And now I believe I got a terrific education here. Don't get me wrong. But that's part of what you learn is you learn how to fit into the business world so you could take your rightful place in those that are plundering the planet.
We're going to have to disagree. I don't think school's teaching you the right stuff to become wealthy. However, last question. Did
Oh, wait a
we?
minute. Why do you want people to become wealthy? They'll just destroy the earth faster.
No, they'll become free. They don't have to listen to corrupt propaganda from the TV and believe it anymore. Case in point, do you believe that we went to the moon in 1969? Do you believe we landed on the moon?
Yes.
Why?
Uh, because there's all this footage of that happening, which would be damn hard to do in a studio, and because all kinds of people did it, and because of the moon rocks that were brought back, which are could not be from Earth, and because of all the enormous science the beautiful thing about science is not that science is correct, but science is self-correcting because everybody's trying to shoot you down. And there was a lot of science involved in getting those guys to the moon.
All right. While you're camping
And,
later
and
on
if
today.
and if they didn't do it, there'd be lots and lots of people much smarter than you and I jumping on the bandwagon of trying to prove them wrong. And the people who say we didn't go to the moon just don't have the qualifications to make that judgment.
There are three things that I would do if I faked it. Number one, I wouldn't ever go back in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. I would also destroy the thing that I came back on. And you know what else I would do? I would destroy all footage that I recorded of everything that wasn't shown on TV. And you know what they did? All three of those things. So when you're camping, go watch the interview they did when they came back. The very first interview, it looks strange. I believe they faked it, and that's pretty much what I got to say about that. So, anyways, I could talk to you for hours. Charles, you are fun, by the way. You're fun to talk to. And
Okay.
I recommend guys check out his book, Energy and the Wealth of Nations. Very smart dude who knows his stuff. Might not be too well in the whole moon landing like we are, and you know what I'm talking about, but he's a good guy anyways. An introduction to biophysical economics, smart guy. Seems like he understands that carbon is sort of just a way for politicians to make a lot of money also, and that's why
No,
I like him.
no, no. Are you still recording me?
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
So, all right, let me ask you this. I admit we don't know enough about it, but let me ask you this question. What's the most important greenhouse gas?
I would say, I don't know. I would say it's got to be with carbon or oxygen or carbon or oxygen, right? Carbon is what plants put off. Or no,
No, they
take
use
it in.
CO2.
So carbon that is taken in by the plants, right, to produce. So you need carbon, in my opinion.
And they give off oxygen and water.
Yes.
And they've changed the environment. Oxygen, when it first occurred a couple of billion years ago on the planet, was a toxin. We had to evolve means of protecting ourselves from being oxidized, from rusting. So, and that happened. And I just gave a series of lectures on this. They're online. You want me to send them to you? You might learn something.
Yeah,
okay,
I'll take a look.
Now what? But we haven't answered the question. What's the most important greenhouse gas?
In my opinion, carbon
Well,
or oxygen.
I wouldn't judge your opinion because you don't believe in moons, but moonshots.
No,
but
I believe in moons. I believe in moon landings. I don't believe we landed on the moon in 1969. Heck, I could have filmed that in my basement. I think they filmed it in my basement, actually.
all right. Well, okay. So the send me a clip of what you don't like, and let me look at it. Okay, but the answer, the most important greenhouse gas is water vapor.
Wow. Okay.
And who's talking about that? It's 4 or 5 times more important than CO2, which is also more important than methane. Methane is more important per molecule, but CO2 is more important in its total effect. So I think we don't know enough about what's going on. That doesn't mean I don't think we should restrict carbon CO2 production because it's hedging your bets. There's too many good scientists that think they've got it pretty well figured out. And it's all the same thing as Arrhenius figured out back in 1860. I mean, the physics is very straightforward.
Hmm.
Now, is it unfolding quite as they say? Well, I don't know. It's a little scary. The data's a little scary. And so we need to understand this better. But that doesn't mean in the meantime, you shouldn't look after things.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, we can agree on a few things, maybe not everything, but Charles, you're gonna have to come back on because I think I could have a lot of fun with you. You're going camping. Guys, check out his book, Energy and the Wealth of
And if
Nations.
you get some good response from your listeners, that might be a good second session.
You got it, man. We'll take a look at it. We'll see what they say. We'll see if they like
What's your name?
What's that?
What's your name?
Mike Fallat.
Okay. See you, Mike. Sorry, I couldn't, I just did this off the cuff.
No, I appreciate it. Remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life.